Hannah, about what do you think is going to be the biggest change we're going to see over the next couple of weeks, months, years?
I think digital is just going to be accelerated. So my biggest thing would probably be, don't be afraid of it, and don't be afraid of change. Change can be the most terrifying thing, but if we embrace it, then I think we can create positive results off the back of this. Obviously, it's been a very challenging time for us all, and will be until we get back to normal, but I think we're going to have a new normal, and I think that we should be embracing of that.
Absolutely. That's a great sum up. Rob?
Yeah,
Rob the prophet who foresee it all.
Exactly. I think that's very profound. I think it's very, very true. I think hopefully what will come out of this will be something really positive, and people will realize that some of the stuff that they the small things that people were stressing about aren't as important as the bigger things in life. And I just ask people not to put themselves under too much pressure during this period, and think that they're, especially creatives, because I know how creatives think, and not to think that you have to come out with this amazing piece of art by the end of this period, or that you've wasted this time. This is a very unusual time. It's just whatever way you can get through it.
Actually, that's a nice message. Actually, true, because there is a lot of pressure on people, I think. Absolutely.
So in South Africa, which we would not survive with, I don't think, as a nation, that you can't buy alcohol during the lockdown. So
really? Oh my
can't
good
buy
God.
any alcohol. No, and
not even off licenses.
You can't buy any alcohol.
And
I've heard, I don't know how statistically correct or true this is, or factually I should say, but apparently it's because they don't want beds in the hospitals being taken by people who have gotten too drunk. I've heard this.
Really?
Because I think maybe they have had issues with that in certain communities. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's absolutely no alcohol. So the first thing you can imagine, our group, Swedish, Norwegian and Irish, the first thing we were thinking before lockdown was, oh my God, forget the food, we need wine.
I mean, the queues in the off licenses here, I've never seen the likes of it.
Anyway,
so before
you missed an incredible insight there.
Hannah was deliberate. You were singing your new single, Rob, and Hannah was talking about the secrets to entrepreneurial business.
We had a new theory about the entire pandemic, and it's just gone now. It's forgotten about.
Very good. Yeah, Hannah was just saying about businesses going online and stuff. How about the Richard Hart Film Festival, Rob? How are you planning for that? Like, are you optimistic? When is it? September, is it, or October?
It's at the end of October. So it's in the terms of the tourism industry, it's known as the shoulder of the season. So shoulder of the season is between the peak season and off season. So it's kind of in between. So we're the kind of end. So we're the end of. So say the Rose of Tralee Festival is the end of the summer season, and then we're kind of one of the last festivals really before the kind of Christmas kind of stuff comes along. So a lot of the festivals that are cancelled up to this point are kind of ones that are summer festivals. So running up to Rose of Tralee, which was announced that it's not going ahead.
And I mean, there's talk of a limit of 5,000 people, and while the Richard Hart Film Festival is very successful, it's probably less than 5,000.
Well, that's the thing. So we're kind of we are not obviously one of the it's completely not comparable to the other ones. If you're interested, that Galway haven't cancelled the Film Fla yet. I can't see them going ahead really. I just think it's going to be too soon for them. We're kind of in that kind of zone of uncertainty, I guess, as in we're a good bit out. We're 6 months out exactly almost. Yeah. So long story short is we're going ahead as planned for now. We're obviously we'll take advice from stakeholders, from Fáilte Ireland, from the council, and also from the health authorities here to see if it's safe at that stage. So we're hopeful that it will be. We also have contingency plans in place. So I mean, the show will go on. It may be a different format. We do have a kind of a digital element to the festival anyway.
Yeah, you were one of the first film festivals to kind of go online. I mean, you were probably, as Hannah was saying, probably one of the forerunners in terms of anticipating an online kind of.
And the interesting thing about that is, in terms of being an adopter and early adopters in digital, very hard to convince filmmakers to actually go. It might be, I assume it'll be different now, but it's very hard to convince filmmakers to actually go online. and to put their work online, and that was quite problematic for us. And now I think people are going to be much more used to, because Belfast had to go entirely online. Still Vice, is it Still Vices? Still Vices festival?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
I think
that's the documentary one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's entirely online. That was due to be on in August sometime. South by Southwest, which is the real big tech kind of innovative film festival, they had a link in with Amazon Prime, and apparently they only got something like 39 of their selections agreed to go online, because they were worried about distribution and stuff.
Of course, yeah.
And they had like over 400 or 500 selected films, so they only got like a tiny proportion of their content to be able to agree to go online. So it's still quite new. Ideally, we would like to have kind of some type of hybrid festival, so that we'll keep it as close to the traditional festival as possible. But like we like at this stage, no one knows if theaters are going to be open. We don't know if pubs are going to be open. We don't know if restaurants are going to be open. So we just don't know. We're planning as if normal, and we're back into a normal world by the end of October. But and I think the other festivals that are on that time of year, such as two Cork and Cork Indie, seem to be going ahead on the same basis, that we'll continue plan as normal until we hear something else.
Yeah.
But like it is concerning for obviously any creatives, for venue owners, theatre owners. They just don't know when they're going to be able to reopen.
Absolutely.
And particularly whatever venue, and theatres who can do social distancing. For bars, that's proving very difficult to them. I've a number of friends in the hospitality industry, and they don't really have a solution at this time that would allow them to open safely.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, all right, about the Irish pub. I mean, let's face it, the Irish pub is one of our dearest institutions in Ireland. It's separate. You can't find it anywhere else in the world. I know they say there's Irish bars in Paris and all this kind of thing. They're not saying. I mean, it's one of the most precious institutions we have, and it'd be a shame to lose it. And so hopefully, we'll find a way of coming back reasonably soon.
It's very unique, because if you look at, say, the other countries that have the cafe culture is obviously allows itself to social distance much more. You're outside, you can have distance between tables. The Irish pub is totally different. Irish pub is you're standing.
Yeah.
You don't sit in Irish pubs.
So one of the beauties of it, though, isn't it, being just cramped in with your drink? Oh God, I'm gonna be knocked over, or whatever. It's
but that's the thing, yeah.
And it's part of the fun of a Saturday night in some ways.
Exactly,
and it's Copperface Jacks have kind of given up the ghost and saying they know they won't be reopened until 2021 now, or they expect they won't be able to reopen until 2021.
Really?
Yeah, just they announced that to their because they said we're the complete opposite of social distancing, and if you've ever been in Copper, I think
it's true.
Very,
yeah, that's actually well said. Yeah, I think everybody knows what that means.
Yeah.
And Hannah, in South Africa, I mean, presumably socializing is very different to here. I mean, it's kind of.
I mean, I haven't spent that much time inside, because most of the time I spent there was during the lockdown, and prior to that I was at this conference. So we were very much in our own bubble at the hotel that was close to that. But no, I mean, they're been massively impacted as well, in the same way. I mean, you can't go to restaurants, for example. I know they have bars, they have nightclubs, they have all of those things too. So I think obviously for us, part of our identity as a nation, and I think the Irish culture is so connected to Irish pubs and those kind of traditions that we have. And that's the first thing that everybody thinks of when they think of Ireland, is having a Guinness in Ireland. And how you just said, there might be Irish pubs elsewhere, but there's none like the ones that are actually here in Ireland. So, I mean, I think everybody's being massively impacted, but in South Africa, which we would not survive with, I don't think, as a nation, that you can't buy alcohol during the lockdown. So
really? Oh
you
my
can't buy
God.
any alcohol. No, and
not even golf licenses.
You can't buy any alcohol.
Oh,
and I've heard, I don't know how statistically correct or true this services, or factually I should say, but apparently it's because they don't want beds in the hospitals being taken by people who have gotten too drunk. I've heard this,
really?
because I think maybe they have had issues with that in certain communities. I'm not sure, but yeah, there's absolutely no alcohol. So the first thing you can imagine, our group, Swedish, Norwegian, and Irish, the first thing we were thinking before lockdown was, oh my God, forget the food, we need wine.
I mean, the queues in the off licenses here, I've never seen the likes of it. I mean, it's just.
But I mean, I was like seeing on Instagram and everything about how people at home are coping, and of course, everybody was wanting to make sure they can have some drink for. I mean, thankfully we've had fantastic weather, but it's strange. It's impacting everybody massively. Of course, different nations have different little things that we connect to and whatnot. They have a big braai culture over there, so they're big into barbecues. So now, obviously, they've had really good weather, but it's kind of transitioning to their winter soon. So, yeah, I mean, we had some braais while we were there, which were lovely. But I don't know. It's a strange time. It's a very strange time. And obviously, as you said, Rob, we have no idea how long this is going to last. Obviously, different countries are starting to ease on restrictions. So I saw that Norway apparently is going to start reopening schools. But obviously,
well, actually, South Africa, I read, is one of the first to be coming out of it. Actually, this week they're going to start coming out. Sweden, Norway. Actually, Sweden never went into lockdown.
I was told that there was at least the possibility when I was there that they were considering extending lockdown, and the last flight for repatriation was on Thursday, to get out of South Africa.
All right, yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
The Swedish thing is interesting because I've had kind of robust discussions with people who have kind of been extolling the virtues of the Swedish model. Now, they still have restricted, they've still closed down some of the schools, universities, and they've still restricted large events. So there's no, obviously, sports. The only place where the sports events going on at the moment is, I think, Belarusian soccer league and in Kazakhstan and places like that.
Which is probably as corrupt as hell, They probably
and it's the results betting markets now.
It's dominating.
And darts as well. Darts is because people can obviously, you can do darts from your own house and just you can compete against someone else. So that's going ahead. But so the Swedish thing is interesting, but I it's, in fairness to governments, no government has a procedure manual for dealing with this crisis.
Absolutely,
you can't really be overly critical of any government. They have to follow the advice of scientists and medical practitioners. And mistakes were made, and you can argue that some of the shutdowns should have been done earlier. And there's all these things you can argue about. But this is not something you can could have anticipated. In all your planning you can do. You're flying without a net, and we all are, and and governments are no different. And clearly, some governments have handled it much better than others. But then there's different societal factors which aid that and hinder it as well. I mean, one of the reasons for that it was so bad in Italy is because Italians are so socially minded, whereas countries that are a little bit more socially distanced,
as in the more affectionate, physically affectionate, and
and their families live together, so you have multi-generational families living in Italy where you don't in other countries.
Actually, it's one of the nice things I've noticed in Italy. The bond between grandparents and their children and grandchildren is fantastic. I mean, it's a lovely thing to see. You'll be out in the evening, they'll be strolling along, eating ice cream and stuff like that. Their family bond is fantastic. Now, unfortunately, it might, as you say, Rob,
Spain as well, and this seems to be what has affected them, and the fact that they're quite tactile people. Whereas, and this is kind of mass generalizations, I guess, but if you look at some of the Scandinavian countries, they do take their personal space a lot more seriously, and they're a little bit more socially distant.
It's true, yeah.
And then we're the Irish, the British, and the Americans are quite similar, I think, in terms of how we approach things like that. So New Zealand obviously has had incredibly successful management of the pandemic, but they have geographical isolation, and they've both within New Zealand and from other countries, which allowed them to do that.
True.
A little bit easier than us, that shares a common border and and that type of thing. So I think I do kind of, I think people who are overly critical of governments, it's kind of like, I have sympathy for, regardless of political affiliation, I have sympathy for governments in this situation, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, as you say, there is no kind of manual for it. I suppose the only thing you can do, and it's something that you touched on, Hannah, is like prepare for the new world after this. I mean, as you were saying, Hannah, it's about, it's going to push people online. There's going to be so many other things that it will change. And actually, now that you mentioned Richard Branson, he's probably the ultimate, entrepreneur, innovator. I'm sure, he's probably, if anybody's ready for adapting and innovating to this, it's probably him. He'll probably be leading it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I had the opportunity to I've been to Neckar Island now twice, which is, still one of those situations that I always pinch myself. It's the most magical place I've ever been.
That's the one he owns, right?
That's the one he owns, yeah. And it's just, it's paradise, but it's also, he's very, he's really creative. And I think that the biggest thing, the first time I went, actually, he was giving we were all having a group discussion, and he was kind of leading a conversation, and we were asking him questions, and he was just talking about the simplicity of business and how it literally is just down to finding a problem and offering a solution. And he talked a lot about how simple things are and how it's about being creative and finding gaps, and how we so often get so focused on all the technicalities of things, like even the language associated with business. He said at first he had no idea the difference between net and gross profit, for example, up until the business was thriving and he had multiple employees. He
was dyslexic. He was dyslexic, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people would sit down and think, I need to have a solid business plan. I need to have this. I need to have that. And it's really, matter of fact, comes down to what's the problem, can you provide a solution? And obviously to relate that to this situation now, I think it's about going back to basics. And of course, none of us know what's going to happen. So it's a matter of trying to predict what to expect and trying to navigate things and think about, what our customers will need or how we can still provide our experience, which obviously I would say the biggest thing about offline businesses is the experience that you have that you can't necessarily provide online. But there are ways around that. So how do we transition? What's the new experience going to be, or what's the add-on experience? And it's trying to figure out what that is for each individual business model. And of course, it's a longer discussion than a quick, 5-minute chat. But it's something that I think, now that we know we're in this situation, we've just got to be positive towards it rather than saying, woe is me, because we're all going through the same thing. So we can't complain about this. We just have to adapt. And I think if we can kind of get over that and start being creative and letting our juices flow and thinking, okay, well, what can we do? Or this is actually quite exciting. Like it's a new extension or it's a new stream of revenue opportunity. Like what can we do? Because we will get a lot of our previous models back. It's just a matter of time. So it gives us an opportunity, I feel, to create an extension or an additional experience that can be really positive and gives us all the chance, I think, to disrupt what's been for so long, to carve this new economy that we can all thrive in. It's just a matter of how we approach it, I feel.
True. Yeah. No, I remember reading Branson's documentary, or Branson's autobiography. It was fascinating. He's talking about the various instances where he set up companies just completely on the spot out of need. Like he was stranded somewhere on holidays. There was no flights out, or the airline went bust. And there was all these people complaining, and he put up a blackboard and he said, right, I'm going to charter a flight. Who wants to be in on it? And, 10 people put up their hands and chipped in, and they started Virgin. I think that's how they started Virgin Airlines. He just he needed a flight, and opportunity was there, and as well Virgin Records as well. It was like he broke all the rules there. He allowed people to go in, to put records on and listen to them. Whereas it was very staid and strict before that. It was kind of. I like the way he has a kind of a rebellious hippie kind of culture to it as well. It's not just straight laced business. He's made fun out of it.
And I think that's the thing. I think when you're going to do something and be really passionate about it, you've got to enjoy it. And I think so often, like even in the past, I've noticed myself putting an intense amount of pressure on myself. Like I'm a perfectionist. I like to do well. If anyone's going to put pressure on themselves, I will, as many of us do. And at times I've sat back and questioned, like, what is the point? What is the point of not enjoying things to the fullest potential, or being, really crazy about my ideas and just going for it? And generally I'm like that, but of course we all have our moments. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. He just really goes for it. And it's like, whatever's going to happen, just be all in. And I think if you're not willing to be all in to the point where you may lose something, then you're not really in it.
Absolutely. Actually, I was just talking to Rob earlier about the connection between two of you. You were at the Richard Harris Film Festival a few times as an actress as well. So another string to your bow. You were in 2 films, were you, at the Richard Harris Film Festival?
I don't even remember. We met on a set in 2000.
Dirty Money was the first one.
Dirty Money, yeah. That was so much fun. Yeah, that was, God. Yeah. Gosh, the time has flown. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm a creative personality through and through. You know, I've always been big into the arts and performance, dance, singing, acting. That's and so great. It was, it's been interesting though, because Rob and I have built quite the friendship over the years and we've kept in touch all the time. And I always love hearing what he's up to. And I probably, you know, annoy him with all my stuff as well. But it's no better man to consult than Mr. Gill down there. And actually, I suppose, I mean, that's the best thing. And I suppose running a film festival, Rob, you get to know a massive network of people and fascinating creative people and stuff like that. It must be.
I mean, it's like we were very much accidental film festival organisers, really. You know, I mean, I hadn't much involvement in arts at all before it was set up. Now Zeb and Sylvia had, because they were running a theatre company for years, and Zeb was an actor, so they were coming from a completely different space than where I was. Whereas
you're the financial side of things, aren't you? Yeah.
So I was like an amateur interest in film and writing. I mean, I always liked writing, but I was kind of more journalistic forms of writing and stuff. But from that, the amount of people you meet, and that's, from that we set up the production company. We have the feature coming out, hopefully in the next few months, Yellow Wallpaper, which
really? I didn't see the feature.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you knew that. The irony of that is, so we shot it last summer. So guess what the Yellow Wallpaper is about?
It's about a virus.
No. A woman, she was locked into a house for a period of time, and it was quite insane.
Oh gosh. Wow, that's timely.
Rob the prophet.
We know.
Yeah. Predicting the future.
So I was on a conference call with the director, with Kevin. He's an American director. He's based in California. And
what's his name? Kevin what?
Kevin Puntuti.
Oh right, no, I was thinking there's another Kevin who produced one in the Goblet. Yeah, it's a different guy. Yeah.
Okay, no, I don't know. No, Kevin Puntuti, anyways, he makes horror films. So it's a famous novella called The Yellow Wallpaper, which is a kind of a real, it's a real well-known canon of American feminist literature from the turn of the century. Nice. And so the woman, she gets postpartum depression. And her husband is a doctor, and he thinks the best thing for her is to bring her to put her into self-isolation.
Even the term is kind of a bit prophetic.
And she basically starts, the yellow wallpaper is, she starts seeing things in yellow wallpaper, and starts having a bit of a mental breakdown. So it's quite interesting. So how that will be received when it comes out?
Hopefully it doesn't become semi-autobiographical or anything,
But so I guess to answer your question, from that we met Kevin through the festival. We met some, a lot of the people that were cast and crew were people that we worked with, that we met through the festival, that we've encountered, and it's really great. And what I love is collaborating with people with a different skill set. With singers, with people that can do stuff that you can't do, and that's the best thing about a festival. There's no doubt about it. It's just meeting people from different creative industries, and seeing them come together, and then seeing them collaborate on different projects, and that's what is great. It's all a bit teamwork, and on a film set is wonderful. Whether it's a small film or a big budget film, you have a team, and you have everyone from the makeup person to the grip, the camera people, the composer, people in post-production. They all have to put their skill set together for the greater goal. Any film that is ever produced is a work of art, because it's a collaborative project. No matter how we've all seen some bad films and we've all seen some really good films, but everything has its merits because it's a project that has been created from scratch, from nothing.
Yeah. And you wrote and acted in the last one that you produced, right? The
I wouldn't say acted, and Emmett, the director, definitely probably wouldn't say acted either. I wrote that, but that's based on a family history. It's a period piece about my grandfather and his brothers who were in the First World War, and that was based on letters that he had sent home. So it was actually quite easy to write it. And Joe Mullins was the lead in it, and Emmett Kelly was the director. So it's kind of it was supposed to be, it's pilot for a TV series. It's one of these things that's there. It's kind of on the back burner a bit. But it's still there, and it's just a case of hopefully bring it forward at some stage.
It's interesting premise because actually that's how 1917 was produced. The blockbuster last year.
Yes,
it was a letter apparently written by his great grandfather or something, and he discovered it in a shoebox or something, and it was the seed.
That was basically how a very Irish family came upon. Is my brother was asked to do a talk in his local historical society about the experience of an Irish family in World War One, and he did research and he dug into it. And one of our cousins over in America, he's a bit of a kind of military historian. He had loads of letters and he had a lot of research done. And Declan did a lot of research as well. And from that, we kind of started working on a script. So we just developed a kind of a script based off that. It was really interesting, really interesting project. I have to say I really enjoyed doing it. And we'll see what comes from it. But the other thing about a festival, as you said, what we always want to do with the festival is to be thinking of what's coming next in terms of and to what Hannah said there about innovation and about disrupting. And we kind of want to be a disruptive festival in terms of, like, we introduced the VR element last year, and that was something we were hoping to really develop. Now, there's a very obvious reason why you mightn't be able to develop VR this year, because of who wants to share masks, do you know what I mean, and headsets and stuff. So it's something, but the technology behind AR, behind VR, holographic 3D, not your traditional 3D filmmaking, but some of the stuff what they're doing now is quite extraordinary. And it's something I'm kind of very excited about, in kind of interactive media. Everyone saw probably Black Mirror, the Netflix one.
Yes. Yeah.
And
it's kind of like a modern Twilight Zone. I mean, you probably remember.
Yeah, and it's based on you probably remember Choose Your Own Adventure books. I think everyone would have read them.
Yes. It was. I don't know, Hannah. You're probably too young. But it was, on page 27, the hero is kind of caught at the end of a cliff, and it says, right, if you think he's going to survive, go to page 45. If you think he's not, go to page 39. Wasn't that, Rob?
That was it, a dragon. There was a dragon at the end of the cliff or something, and then you're like, I should have gone to the other one, and then you go back and you go on a different path. But they developed the technology to do that, and Bandersnatch was the first major production to try that, and then Steven Soderbergh did one as well, which has on beyond HBO. And the problem is it costs an absolute fortune because, as you know, Fergus.
It's interactive films.
Yeah. But all scenes have to be shot.
Of course.
Time.
Yeah.
And then continuity, the actors, the stress puts on the actors is quite extraordinary. I definitely think there's ways of the way we consume film now is going to be very, very different in a few years. And I think this process we're going through now might be a big catalyst for changing how we consume films.
Absolutely.
And media, because Hollywood has ground to a complete halt. Poor old Matt Damon is locked away in a luxury villa in Dalkey for the last 6 weeks.
Yes. Have you seen that, Hannah? You probably missed it because Matt Damon is down the road here in Dalkey. He's going for swims down on the beach. Yes.
Really?
He's in a gated mansion somewhere in Dalkey, and he goes down to
Is he
Sandy
filming
Cove.
something or something at the moment?
He was, but the film got stopped. It was The Last Jewel, a Ridley Scott film, I think.
Gosh, no, that's intense.
He decided to quarantine in Dalkey with his family, and Aaron's meeting him. So I don't know if he's sticking to the 2 days.
Who met him?
Everyone in Dalkey.
Oh yeah. There's plenty of photographs. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Yeah.
But as a result, there's going to be a massive backlog of production. You know, all productions are stopped. So I hope Hollywood is taking this time to, you know, really innovate and try to think about solutions and see what can come out of it, and something good can come out of it. Create.
And musicians on tours and things like that all cancelled as well. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, like, you know, all the athletes, like when we get our groceries from a local shop here, and it's one of the Limerick hurlers, midfielders, he delivers, like, and Dara's a, you know, all-star, All-Ireland winning hurler.
Oh yeah.
I say he'd much prefer to be off training now rather than.
Sure. After so many decades waiting for that All-Ireland hurling championship win, they finally got them, and just in time, really, I suppose.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Well, look, come here. Listen, it's been fascinating discussion. Absolutely brilliant, guys. Is there a final word you want to give, Hannah, about what you think is going to be the biggest change we're going to see over the next couple of weeks?
I think digital is just going to be accelerated. So my biggest thing would probably be, don't be afraid of it, and don't be afraid of change. Change can be the most terrifying thing, but if we embrace it, then I think we can create positive results off the back of this. Obviously, it's been a very challenging time for us all, and will be until we get back to normal, but I think we're going to have a new normal, and I think that we should be embracing of that.
Absolutely.
That's a great sum up. Rob?
Yeah,
Rob the prophet who foresee it all.
Exactly. I think that's very profound. I think it's very, very true. I think hopefully what will come out of this will be something really positive, and people will realize that some of the stuff that they you know, the small things that people were stressing about aren't as important as the bigger things in life. And I just ask people not to put themselves under too much pressure during this period, and, you know, think that they're, especially creatives, because I know how creatives think, and, you know, not to think that you have to come out with this amazing piece of art by the end of this period, or that you've wasted this time. This is a very unusual time. It's just whatever way you can get through it.
Actually, that's a nice message, actually, true, because, there is a lot of pressure on people, I think. Absolutely.
So much.
Yeah. It was fascinating. Absolutely lovely talking to you both. And, you know, sorry about the technical problems in the middle and everything, but it's just absolutely wonderful. It was really enjoyed that discussion. So thanks a million.
Thanks a
million to you both.
Thanks for having me. Take care, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Good luck.